Hey guys, what's going on? I just wanted to show you real quick the debt snowball, give you a little bit of guidance, and I'll just be pulling from my experience and just some practical knowledge of it. So let me minimize myself real quick. All right, here's what we've got. So I've downloaded this. This is it's sometimes called the debt reduction calculator, the debt snowball. You can go to this website right here. If you just Google Vertex 42, it'll pop up, no issues. And it's a ad supported free spreadsheet this guy has created, and I don't have any affiliation with them, but I did use this when it's been around a while actually. And I think you can use others. You can use pen and paper. I think Dave Ramsey actually has one. He's big in getting people out of debt. But you can see here, I've actually just made this up. So you put in today's date, and I've just made this up. It's pretty common for people to have credit cards. I think the most recent data I've seen is that the typical American has $5,500, $5,600 in credit card debt. And that's usually 20-25% in interest. Every once in a while, you'll have introductory rates, but yeah, typical is about 20% interest. And I just ballpark the minimum payments here. So 2 credit cards, same for the car payments. New cars are they're over $40,000 right now. They're quickly approaching $50,000. Used cars are high 20s and low 30s. So I think the typical car payment for a used car is about $525. So this is actually lower than that. And for a new car, $770 is a typical new car payment now. So extremely expensive. So these are actually fairly reasonable, I think, common numbers. And then I just ballparked student loans at $600 a pop. So $70,000 in debt is fairly common. That's not extreme. You know, if you don't have student loans, then props to you. A lot of people do. But if it's not student loans, it might be more car payments. I mean, a typical American just has a problem with debt. So you can see right here, we're looking at $70,000 in debt. And I've ordered everything smallest to largest. Now, you don't have to put them in this order. You actually have the ability over here where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can actually sequence them and however you want. So if you want to get started earlier on the student loans, you can put that at number 1. And then up here, you know, if you want to do the credit card last, you can do it 5. So it's completely up to you. But what I would say is that probably we want to start with smallest to largest because it's going to give you those quick wins. And there's, you know, if you're like me, there's probably like a little bit of an analytical side of your brain that says, nah, you know, this is a math problem. We need to do highest interest first. But really, if math was the issue, I don't think we would really have this much debt. And so it's not really a math problem. I think it's more of just a behavior problem, and we need some quick wins here. It's a lot easier to chunk away at a $1,500, $1,600 debt versus going after something that's, say, $25,000. So here we go. If we basically do the absolute minimum payment of $1,773, okay, it says that's too low. Basically what it means is that's not the debt snowball. You're just making your monthly payments, which is crazy because you think about that. $1,800 a month is just going to servicing your debt. You're basically making wealthy the bankers, the finance companies, instead of building your own wealth. And there will be a time to invest. That $1,700, $1,800 going into an ETF or a mutual fund over long term will build some tremendous wealth. However, right now, instead of making money in the stock market, you're losing 20% or 25% or 5 or 6%, depending on what debt you're working on. And so it's more important now that we stop the bleeding than it is worrying about whether we're, you know, getting good returns in the market. There will be a time to discuss dollar cost averaging, investing in mutual funds or ETFs, and really load things up. But for now, let's just say that we do our monthly budget and we figure there's an extra $2,500 a month between servicing debt and what we can pay extra. So almost $1,800 is wiped out just by our minimum payments. And then an extra $727 is left over to help us kind of service our debt. And that'll basically be our initial snowball. If you go down here to the payment schedule, you can see that you're going to start out making the minimum payment plus that 700 and change, and it's going to take you 3 months. Okay, so you can see over here by month number 3, you'll be down to just $73 on that credit card. Okay, and you take that extra money and you start moving on to credit card number 2. So the first 2 months, you were just making the minimum payment, $75. And then month 3, you're up to almost $800 towards credit card 2. And you can see by month 6, you've whittled that credit card down to $116, and you pay that off. Okay, so you can see over here, you are starting out with $70,000 in debt. Okay, and by the time you have worked your way through these first 2 credit cards, you're down to $57,000 in debt. So you're already making progress. So we move on to month 7, and we made a partial payment of everything that we could of almost $1,200, but month 7 is the first time that we're able to make a pretty monster-sized payment towards our car loan. So we've been making the minimum payments of $450, and then month 7 we do a whopping $1,300 towards our car loan. And we're not doing anything beyond the minimum payment for our second car note. We're not doing anything with our student loans. We are just aggressively chunking away at Honda Finance, okay? And if you add this up, so it's about, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, it looks like it's 13 months. It's 13 months that you are doing these monster payments, okay? And the reason this matters, this is the biggest argument for why you want to do smallest to largest versus the highest interest rate. Because length of time that you are committing to making payments, it can be discouraging. Okay, it only took us 3 months to get a win over here. In fact, it was basically 2 months and then $73. You could probably squeeze $73 out of month 2 to get there. But if you can't, I mean, you got a quick win. 2 months, boom, it's gone. It's off your plate. And then you're talking about another 3 months before you're completely wiped out. So in 6 months, you've wiped out both your credit cards, you're building momentum, you've got a purpose, you've got some confidence, and you're making progress. But then you've got 13 months, that's over a year, where you are just fighting and clawing and scratching your way trying to get out of debt. And it can be discouraging at times, especially if you run into snags. You get a car accident, you got a deductible, or you get a pipe leaks in your house, and all of a sudden you got to take care of that. The hot water heater goes out. And so the longer it takes where you're in debt, the more discouraging it can be. And so if you have the confidence of wiping out your debt in the first, say, 3 months, 6 months, you start to build some momentum, you start getting convinced that it's going to work, and you're more likely to stick with it. If you start out and don't make any progress, and you have to wait 13, 14 months before you can even get your title on your car, and that's the first thing you do, the whole time you could have paid off the credit card, made a little bit of progress. And here's where it starts to accelerate. So 13, 14 months to knock out this car, and all the while you're making your minimum payments on car number 2. But check this out. Once you wipe that out, because you've already been making your minimum payments, you're only talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're only talking about 8 months to completely wipe out car note number 2. So you're accelerating, you're building momentum, and that's the beauty of it, is as you build momentum and you start to make progress, you can taste it. It's one of those things where you're getting closer and you're building momentum, you're sticking with the plan. And so it's a compounding effect, kind of like compound interest. Right now it's working in your favor because of you being aggressive and paying off your debt. And when we started over here at 70 grand in debt, okay, within just a year and a half, so you can see this is 18 months, you've gone from 70 down to about 30. You're more than halfway done, okay? And then it just accelerates from there. Once you move on to your student loans, so you're 8 months of paying off this car, and then you move on to your student loans. You're talking about of extra payments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're talking about 6 months of making extra payments on your student loans before they're wiped out. And so they talk about student loans being 10 years or 15 years or whatever those break out. But in a matter of 31 months from start to finish, not even 3 years, you're talking about 2.5 years, you've paid off all of your debts. Okay. And this is a very normal, reasonable way to do it. And it doesn't have to be where you stick with that $2,500 a month in this example. Let's say you get some promotions, or you get an extra job, or you you find a way to kind of cut your costs even more, and you can somehow kind of goose this number up a little bit more. Let's say you bump it up to $3,500. Now you're doubling the minimum payment that you would have to do. And so if you go over here, we were talking about 31 months. At this pace, you're done with credit card 1, month 1. Credit card 2, it's really only 2 months. So in a matter of 3 months, you have wiped out both of your credit cards. Okay, instead of 13 months of paying on your car, you're really only talking about, let's see here, 7 months. 7 months of paying extra on your car. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 more months to pay car number 2. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to pay off your student loans. So you're talking about 22 months, less than 2 years, to pay off $70,000. So, the goal here is to maximize in your budgeting, maximize your leftover. And that's going to be done by cutting costs, being frugal, coordinating, planning, having an emergency fund. This doesn't happen by accident. You're going to have to be very intentional to do it. And it's absolutely worth it. And I can tell you with conviction that this works. I did it myself, and I'm nothing special. It's very simple. This isn't rocket science, but it does take commitment and really wanting to get out of debt. And there will be some months where, an emergency happens and you just have to deal with it, but you just keep working at it. And so hit me up in the comments if you have any questions about this. Like I said, this isn't a particularly complicated process, but it is absolutely worth it. And it's one of those things that if you are committed to doing it, you will not regret it. I absolutely do not regret getting out of debt. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. We did it in our 20s, was getting out of our debt, and we've never looked back. We don't have any debt now outside of our home, and it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it, but it's going to take being intentional and being laser focused. And anybody that says, hey, debt is just a fact of life and you have to, maybe for a period it's a fact of life, but it doesn't have to be. And so I would definitely encourage you to get aggressive. Let me know if you have any questions, if you want any help. It's like I said, it's not really that complicated, but this is a behavior thing that we want to try to get addressed. So hopefully this was helpful. If you need anything, let me know. And until next time.